Hey guys and girls, welcome back. I am Indie Pride, and we have our first great look at the Total War Warhammer 2 Great Vortex campaign map, and there's some really exciting stuff to talk about. There are some clear abstractions from real Warhammer geography to make this whole map work in terms of gameplay. Southlands are obviously not directly south of Ulthuan, for example, but this isn't necessarily the final campaign map. The whole thing kind of needed to be squished to make room for the faction information over on the right side of the screen, and it's also important to remember that CA wants every faction represented one way or another in the New World campaign. So some of these minor factions and their start positions are kind of stretches in the lore as a way to make gameplay more interesting and the land masses more flavorful with different enemies and troop compositions. I'll try to point some of those out as we move along. This map is pretty gigantic. It has around 70 regions and more than 200 settlements, whereas the Game 1 map had between 50 and 60 regions and less than 150 settlements. So about a 15 to 20% bump in the size of this map. Pretty big jump there. And of course, we get the benefit of having all those Game 1 factions present on the Game 2 map. So not only is it bigger, it's also got a lot more going for it in terms of faction diversity. So, let's talk starting positions, the spots each of the sub-factions and races will begin their campaigns. One thing I noticed right off the bat is that the playable factions are no longer named High Elves, Dark Elves, or Lizardmen. The sub-factions each have their own regional name based on their city or start position. Does add a little bit of flavor there for sure. To the northwest, in the bleak land of Chill, home of the Dark Elves, Malekith the Witch King leads Nagorond. Morathi, Hag Sorceress of Grond, leads the Cult of Pleasure to the west of Clarkorond, south of Nagorond, and we still don't know yet if Warhammer 2 will be going for more recent edition fluff, with the Cult of Pleasure worshipping Authority, the elf goddess of sex and overindulgence, or visiting older lore when the Dark Elves made pacts with demons, and some secretly worshipped Slaanesh. You would think Authority would be their patron god, considering so much of this series so far has been based around 8th edition, but Slaanesh worship and Chaos Corruption would be a pretty interesting twist on a Morathi campaign, and certainly help drive a wedge between the two major Dark Elf subfactions. In Ulthuan to the east, Tyrion, Blood of Anarion, sits in the capital city of Lothern. It's a pretty significant Cult of Excess rebellion to put down early on, represented by that hot pink. Bit ironic, actually, seeing Tyrion lead that charge, given his excessive cucking of Phoenix King Finnebar with Illyriel the Everqueen, but no one ever said elves are perfect except themselves. They like sex and hypocrisy just like everybody else. From a gameplay perspective, this was necessary though, I think. High Elf campaigns would be exceptionally boring if Ulthuan was as defensible and pristine as it is in the lore. And in the north of Ulthuan, we're going to get a good look at a potential start position in Nagarife for Alathanar, the Shadow King, when he presumably becomes DLC or free content, and directly to his east, in that orange province, is the Scourge of Cain. So yet another Dark Elf sub-faction that will give you a little bit of trouble when you're starting your campaign in Ulthuan. You can also see one ruined settlement off the coast of Tiranoc to the west of Ulthuan, and that is Tor Anroch, the capital city of Ulthuan, during the reign of Belshazzar, who was the king betrayed by Malekith in the run-up to the Sundering, but it was destroyed during the Sundering by waves when all the gigantic fortresses took off and went to Naggaroth. So it's pretty cool that that's in ruins. Very nice touch from the lore, and you can bet your ass some nasty critters will be occupying those ruins. In the bottom left corner of the screen, off the western coast of Lustria on the Turtle Isles, is the greatest living High Elf sorcerer Teclis, and the Order of Lore Masters will be his sub-faction. As we've seen in the campaign trailer, he's traveled to Lustria to help stabilize the Great Vortex and uncover ancient knowledge of the Old Ones, but the Lizardmen don't necessarily want him there. And speaking of Lizardmen, Lord Mazdamundi starts on the Isthmus of Lustria in Hexadol, City of the Sun, in the north of Lustria, and as we expected, with the New World colonies and Skeggi right on his doorstep. To the north are the Grey Guardians, occupied by the red Dark Elf subfaction that I've absolutely never heard of before. If anyone has any clue what Sildrator is, if that's even how you pronounce it, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. It might actually be a Lizardman naming convention with the double S. It doesn't look like Drew here to me, but it's definitely a Dark Elf subfaction regardless. The province they inhabit, the Grey Guardians, are a sentient mountain range created by Mazdamundi himself to prevent a Dark Elf invasion from overwhelming his city. He literally created a mountain range with his mind and kept an enchantment over it that basically makes it impossible for enemy armies to attack overland from the north. And then for the other Lizardmen start position, we have Kronkgar and the last defenders of Zodal, the City of Destiny. They've wandered to the southeastern corner of the map in the Kingdom of Beasts in the Southlands. Zodal was destroyed during the Great Catastrophe during that demonic invasion thousands of years ago, and so it has gone the way of much of Lustria in this campaign, which is to say, into ruins. And what lives in ruins? Rats. Dirty, filthy Thagaraki, the Skaven of Clan Moors and Clan Pestilence seem to be the two starting positions and two starting subfactions for the Skaven. Not hard to decipher those two based on the number of question marks at the top right, and based on the colors and start positions as well. So, Clan Moors is well known for their red color scheme, and they will start in those gigantic ruins in the southern jungles of the Southlands with Queek Headtaker, who was leaked a few days ago and plastered all over Reddit and Total War forums. Across the churning Gulf in Lustria, the other Skaven star position is in the Lost Valley with a green color scheme and Clan Pestilence, who begin their reclamation of Lustria after Sotek chased them into the sea centuries ago. Who will lead that subfaction? Well, it could still be Greyseer Thankwall, but given all the information we have, and the fact that Clan Pestilence matches up perfectly with the second set of question marks, I don't even know what I'm talking about, honestly. It's just a rat. These are just rats. Why are we discussing them right now? Anyway, we did see Doom Wheels and a Plague Monk in the leak, by the way, so at least part of Pestilence and Scryer will be represented, and those are the start positions, but there's a lot more to this map than just the start positions for each of the major factions. Albion made it to the map, somehow. That's a pretty cool touch, and is currently garrisoned by the Scaling Tribe to the northeast of Ulthuan. I'm not going to hold on to too much hope there that they get fleshed out, but a minor faction DLC is most certainly on the table. Just in general, the minor factions are, we now know with Norska that they can do other ones if they want to, so it's possible they're on the table, it's possible they get done at some point. I'm not going to say it's likely at the moment, but it's possible. Kronkgar traveled there in the lore to establish the stronghold of Conquata, and it's a pretty interesting location. There's a lot going on there. There are woad-wearing people led by Truesayers, a lot of magical elements on the entire island, Fimir, giants, and all manner of other creatures all inhabit the place. Never had a massive amount of lore written about it, honestly. Kind of generic, but Creative Assembly could definitely come up with a cool theme for their armies, given a little bit of creative license and leeway from Games Workshop. Two factions that I definitely expect to see are the Tomb Kings and Araby in the north of the African continent equivalent. The Tomb Kings are almost a shoo-in for the first big Warhammer 2 DLC, as they're the only major faction that can naturally fit on this campaign map, besides the ones that are going to be the headlining factions in Game 2, obviously. And no, guys, Game 2 is not going to have the Demons of Chaos as a playable faction. I can pretty much guarantee it. You can't sell Game 3 without Demons, and honestly, Game 3 is going to be hard enough to sell as it is. So, the Tomb Kings, I think, are definite, very likelihood, given this map. I don't think the Demons of Chaos are. Now, the Strigoi and the Necrarch bloodlines of the vampire counts, which are technically a different subfaction, so I should say Strigoi and Necrarch bloodlines of the undead are currently occupying their home in the land of the dead, so they're occupying the Tomb King's lands, which are the deserts of ancient Nehekara. Our Tomb Daddy Necron overlords will be arriving soon enough, I should think. As I said, I believe they'll be the first major race pack in Total War Warhammer 2. And one province over is Sudenburg, an imperial city founded during the Crusades against Araby centuries ago, and it seems like a fresh round of Crusader invasions have hit the Desert Sands because all of Araby is currently under control of Bretonnian subfactions. Baron Thegan and his Crusaders have the coast of Araby, with the Blooded Axe Beastmen tribe nearby, and Mogan of the Flame, another Bretonnian noble under the tutelage, I believe, of Lewin Leoncoeur, has control over the land of assassins. Even the Pirates of Sartosa make an appearance, the free city and wildly dangerous pirate haven to the north of Araby. I really do think Araby is going to make it into the game for Warhammer 2. There are just so few major factions that can be done as DLC with this map, and so many minor factions that can be fleshed out, that it's virtually a guarantee more factions like Norska are on their way. And Araby is in a very strategic place for this campaign map. Not to mention they have quite a bit of lore and have their own full War Master list, so there's plenty of lore and ideas to build a full army roster off of. In the heart of the jungle, smack dab in the middle of the Southlands, are the Bowmen of Orion, a super obscure Wood Elf subfaction from the lore, written all the way back in 1984, and never mentioned again to the best of my knowledge. So Prince Orion chose the best archers and woodsmen and assembled this famous elven band, and with his company, Orion left the old world and took ship to the elf kingdoms, where he joined the crusading army of the sea elf lord Stalior. He fought with distinction in a Southlands campaign, losing an eye in hand-to-hand combat with the evil wizard Dornbast. Orion's company wears the traditional hunting green of the Wood Elves with full capes and hoods. In addition to his bow, each warrior carries a shield, sword, long knife, and 2 quivers. The company proved more than willing to get stuck in, and after their return to the old world formed the basis of the Greenwood's defense. Orion himself grew sullen over the years and took to brooding over the loss of his eye and vitality, a result of his wound inflicted by Dornbast, and one day he simply vanished. Popular legend has it that he went in search of his long-lost eye. The tale is told in some length in the Lay of Orion's Folly, a well-known drinking song. So the Bowmen of Orion earned eternal fame on the occasion when a huge giant champion challenged Orion to single combat. He accepted, and as the giant strode out to do combat, his entire company launched a single volley of arrows, killing the giant instantly. And although many people thought this a dirty trick, Orion always maintained that the giant had rancid breath, smelled utterly foul, and deserved to die anyway. Thanks to Wolf Remio on Reddit for finding that incredibly old story, literally from 1984, and I don't think there's ever been another rendition of it, so super obscure right there, and I think it demonstrates how crazy deep Creative Assembly is going with the lore in this game. Some really old and really cool references on this campaign map for sure, likely the work of our friend Andy Hall. So obviously we can see a lot of ruins scattered throughout the map. Not all of them are going to be Skaven infested, of course. There will simply be some unused settlements that can be occupied and built back up at the start of some campaigns. And we know that treasure hunting is one of those new mechanics where you can go into abandoned ruins and search for gold or treasure and occasionally run into some nasty army that's lying in wait. And finally, in the far north, at the edge of the Chaos Wastes, are the Hmong and the Agals, two particular tribes of Hung, among the most numerous human factions in all of Warhammer. These are gigantic nomadic steppe tribes. They share a similar relationship to Chaos as Norscan tribes do, but the Hung are different in that they are more Asiatic in appearance, having been modeled after the Huns and Mongols' military and society. They basically roam the steppes and wastes in gigantic nomadic packs and armies, raiding settlements, hunting, gathering, and joining the ruinous powers in times of war. They sort of form the meat shield of the chaotic armies as they start invading into the Empire and start doing that stuff during the end times. They live in the saddle, drink blood from their horses, their necks. They make a little cut in their neck and drink from there when nutrition becomes difficult. And they're always moving, always pillaging, and more numerous than the stars in the sky is one comparison an Empire soldier made about them. In comparison to Norska, they're much more focused on cavalry and horse archery, but they still share their lightly armored styles of warfare between the two tribes and locations. In terms of minor factions that I think have at least a snowball's chance in hell for Game 2 of free content or DLC, I think Skeggy, Araby, the Vampire Coast, and possibly Albion all have a shot. Dogs of War, obviously, as well. I would say that between those minor factions, Araby and Dogs of War probably have the best shot, and then Skeggy's maybe closely bringing up behind them. Nagash and Neferata would perhaps be even more logical additions than those. Nagash is a must-have. I don't think any of those are must-haves, because the Game 2 honestly doesn't need DLC, it's just good for us to have it, if we want to buy it, and then if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. But I think Nagash is, of everything in Game 2 that could possibly be in Game 2, Tomb Kings and Nagash are pretty much what have to be there, I think. And remember, we are getting 4 new Legendary Lords with the next full race pack, and that's presumably going to be the Tomb Kings race pack, so there is a lot CA could do with starting positions and lords in that DLC. Arcan the Black, Neferata, obviously High Queen Khalida, Cetra the Imperishable, of course, and then possibly Nagash could be included there, or he could be included as some kind of nemesis mechanic for the Tomb Kings. We'll see relatively soon. I don't think it's going to be that long after launch to when we get the Tomb Kings. Probably maybe 4 or 5 months at the most, I would think. But I pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about in this video. If you guys noticed anything worthy of discussion or interest, or if you have any lore tidbits for any of these minor or major factions, please share that in the comment section. and let's just share some knowledge with each other, help get people up to speed, get people talking, and get hyped. Knights of Orgo are even in there as well. They're a famous Dogs of War regiment, and they're a sub-faction. So there's just a lot of really nice touches there on the campaign map. I do think it looks gorgeous, and I'll be interested to see if it maintains this particular orientation and positioning, or if things are still getting changed around a little bit, and they might have to move things around. Hope you guys all enjoy the video, and I'll see you next time. Indie Pride, signing out for now.